This is a true pleasure to introduce our first plenary speaker. And I say it's a true pleasure because more than a very well-known, internationally recognized expert in young learners, Annie Altamirano is a dear and close friend of mine. Um, uh, so I'm delighted to introduce her and her talk, Differentiated Instruction, Challenge and Misconceptions in the Young Learner's Classroom. This forms part of our Better Together in the Classroom strand of the conference. And differentiation is such an important thing. With the pandemic, we have come to realize how amazingly diverse our students are, and finding ways to cater to their learning needs is at the core of what we do. Let me tell you what Annie has done. She has an MA in ELT and Applied Linguistics. For over 30 years, she has been a teacher trainer, a very caring mentor, and of course, a published author. She has given workshops and delivered training in many places in the world, throughout Latin America, throughout Europe, and also in Asia. And for many years, she served as a Cambridge English Language Assessment presenter and mentor with the Cambridge Teacher Support Services. During her plenary, may I recommend that we watch in speaker view so that you will be able to see the whole screen clearly. And if you have any questions, please include them in the Q&A box for Annie, and she will answer the questions after her plenary. So Annie, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. I feel really honored to have you introducing me. And thank you to the IATF for Young Learners and Teenagers SIG for inviting me and having me giving this opening plenary. Well, as Gabriel said, differentiation is such an important topic, and it's quite close to my heart, because I think that a classroom reality that challenges our capacity to teach inclusively as we want is the variety of learners that we have in our classrooms that surrounds us every day. Some students come to us with highly developed skills, others with a wide range of challenges. Some can come from different cultures, different social contexts. And as teachers, our duty is that no matter their differences, we need to make them feel valuable. We need to make them feel that they can, to make them feel that all their contributions are valuable. And also, we need to make them learn from each other, and learn that it's truly better together and not individually. So in order to support all this, we can implement an instructional framework called differentiated instruction. However, there are a lot of misconceptions, and if you will allow me, I'm going to share my screen now. Let me see here. Now, here we are. So, there are a lot of misconceptions about differentiated instruction. I'm going to briefly touch upon this. So, first of all, many people think that differentiated instruction is individualized instruction. And well, it's not true. It offers multiple ways of learning. And although it is aimed at attending to students as individuals, it doesn't assume a separate assignment for each student. Also, it's not chaotic. That is, fear of losing control of the lesson has always been a major concern of all teachers in all our lives. But in an effectively differentiated classroom, orderly flexibility is a defining feature. It is also not another way of providing homogeneous grouping. That is, it's not a tracking system by ability. It accommodates, that is, flexible grouping accommodates students who are strong in some areas and perhaps weak or not so strong in others. Some students may begin a task slowly and then progress at a remarkable pace, while others progress more slowly but steadily. So the goal is to have students work with a wide variety of peers and with a wide variety of tasks so that we can draw on the strengths of all group members, and we can also, or they can also share the students' areas of need. Also, it's not tailoring the same suit of clothes. It's not letting students volunteer to answer questions or grading some students a little harder than others because we know that they are better. So these modifications show a certain awareness of differences in students' needs, but it's not enough to address significant learning issues. Also, differentiated instruction is not just for learners who struggle. Many people think that it's just for those who are weak or not so confident. No way. That is, there are students who obviously need more scaffolding. There are students who have learning challenges, who have visual or hearing impairments, intellectual disabilities. Of course, these students will need scaffolding on a regular basis. However, students who learn rapidly, who think deeply, who make meaningful connections across content areas, also need challenges on a regular basis to grow academically as they should. And also, there are students in the middle. That is to say, the ones who struggle a little, moderately, who know a bit of part of a lesson, but struggle with others. So it's not just for learners who struggle. Now, what is differentiation? Now, we can say that differentiation, to begin with, it's relevant, rigorous, and proactive. Effective differentiation is designed to be robust enough to challenge all learners in the classroom. It's also more qualitative than quantitative. A learner who has demonstrated mastery of one skill is ready to stop practicing that skill and move on to something more challenging. So sometimes adjusting the quantity of an assignment will not be as effective as changing the nature of the assignment to match the actual needs of that student. Also, differentiated instruction is rooted in assessment. Assessment, and this is another aspect of teaching that is very close to my heart, because assessment is not something that happens at the end of a unit of learning to check who has mastered the content and who doesn't. No, diagnostic reassessment will routinely take place at the beginning of a unit to establish individuals' needs, interests in relation to the unit goals. Throughout the unit, we can assess students' readiness levels, interest, and approaches to learning. And we can design learning experiences based on this understanding of their needs. Also, differentiated instruction is taking multiple approaches to content, process, and product. By differentiating these three key elements, we can offer different approaches to what the students learn, to how they learn, and to how they demonstrate learning. It is obviously student-centered. It is a blend of whole class, group and individual instruction, and it's organic and dynamic because teachers and students are learning together. Ongoing collaboration with students is necessary to refine the learning opportunities that we are offering our students. So, how can we define differentiation? Okay, it is never something we just add to a lesson. It's something that runs throughout what we do as teachers through all the phases of a lesson, when we plan, when we teach, and when we assess. So it is what we do to help students make progress regardless their starting point. It means ensuring that all the learners, no matter their ability, their interest, their context, have the support and the scaffolding they need to meet or to exceed the learning intentions. Now, how can we differentiate? First of all, we need to think about the needs of the learners. So a good way to start with differentiated teaching is to look at the classroom through the eyes of three broad categories of learners. We have advanced learners, we have learners who sometimes struggle, the learners in the middle, as we said, and the learners who struggle more. These categories, however, are fluid because learners can and actually do move among these categories at different stages of their learning life and across subject skills. For example, me, when I was at school, I was an advanced learner of languages and literature in secondary school, for example. But I was one of the ones who struggled at maths. And I was quite average in physics and chemistry. So you see, but depending on the types of activities that we did in the classroom, I could move. For example, in maths, I could move. I was never in the advanced level, I must confess, but my ability was quite fluid. So, for example, as I say, some learners may be advanced at the beginning of the course, but not later on. Some may be advanced all the time, but not on all aspects of learning or on all skills. So we may consider some students advanced in the light of the context they live in, which is very important. But because the primary aim of differentiated instruction is to maximize the potential of our learners, when we see or sense that a child can learn more deeply and can move at a faster pace, we have to offer them more advanced learning opportunities. Because advanced learners, like all learners, need help in developing their potential. Under-challenged children can become mentally lazy even if they do well at school. And there is scientific evidence that says that the brain loses tone and capacity if it is not used vigorously, much in the same way as muscles. So, if a child produces success without effort, potential brain power can be lost. Under-challenged learners can also fail to develop valuable life skills, valuable study skills, and coping skills. For example, many students may get good grades without learning to work hard. So when they are confronted with the need to study hard or to persist in spite of difficulties, they become frustrated and think that they are no good. Also, they may develop a sense of self, they fail to develop a sense of self-efficacy. Because this sense comes from trying hard to achieve a goal that you initially believed was beyond your capacity. And so advanced learners share the same needs all children have for teachers to help them set high goals, devise plans to achieve these goals, learn to manage and tolerate frustration, and devise plans to achieve those goals. So, how can we help them? Okay, here are some principles. Let's see. First of all, challenge advanced children to challenge themselves. Raise expectations so that they can compete with their own possibilities. Increase support to match the ceilings of expectations. That is, when tasks are appropriately challenging, these children will need support and scaffolding just like the other learners do. Emphasize pride in quality work and satisfaction in struggling. Berger calls this establishing an ethics of excellence. And this applies to all students, regardless their abilities, that they feel proud of what they have done and what they have achieved. Help children know how to achieve quality. Teach them that finishing fast doesn't necessarily mean that they have done quality work. Teach them what quality work and excellence means. And balance rigor and joy in learning. Make sure that they find pleasure in what they are learning. This is essential because otherwise they won't persist in their efforts. Now, learners. Now, labels are really tricky with struggling learners because there are some that have clearly negative connotations. The slow learner, the connotation of being lazy, come on. Many of them are not. They work hard, they try hard. Or learners that are at risk. And I think that this expression overlooks the part of these children that may be at promise. So just like with an advanced learner, the profile of a struggling learner may shift over time and across skills. Many of those learners may be quite accomplished or proficient in talents that schools treat as secondary. For example, leadership, technical ability, manual ability. So how can we help them? First of all, believe in their inner capacities when these may not be evident. Teach with a growth mindset. That is to say, from the belief that our most basic abilities are only at a starting point and that dedication and sustained effort can greatly extend those basic abilities. Look for the struggling learners' positives. All children can do something right, and it's important to find those things. Affirm them in private and in front of peers. Sosa says that students do better when they believe that the teacher is more committed to helping them than to catching them wrong. So bear that in mind. Remember that success brings success. Make sure struggling learners spend time every day doing things that are relevant to them and help them see themselves as powerful learners. Work for learning in context. Help them see how what they are learning is relevant to their everyday life. Go for powerful learning. If struggling learners can learn everything, make sure they learn the big ideas, the key concepts, the governing rules that will help them see the big picture of a topic. And teach up. Plan for advanced learners and then scaffold for struggling learners on those same tasks. Now, what happens with learners in the middle? What happens with those children who are neither advanced nor struggling? They are okay. They don't seem to have difficulties. They don't seem extraordinary in any way. So they are sometimes likely to fall off the radar. Yet, among those learners, we may have some who need just a little more help, a little push to shine. And they are also waiting for someone to signal that they are unique, special, and that there is no achievement beyond their reach. And that someone is you, the teacher. So we need to bear some guidelines in mind too. For example, understand that every human being needs to feel that they are unique and important, not better or worse than someone else, but valuable. And this applies to all students. Pay attention to their signals, to their hopes, their dreams, their interests, and their fears. Also, teach again with a growth mindset, with affirmation, support, guidance, so that they can grow and discover their possibilities, and perhaps they were not aware of those possibilities before. Teach productive habits of mind and work. Teach them, and the others as well, of course, to ask for help when they need it, to set themselves goals, to use feedback. Helping children dream is important, but it is equally important to teach them how to achieve those dreams. Again, teach up. Just like with the strugglers, they need to escape the middling curriculum. Teach them to be aspirational. Some children come from homes where and they are university bound ever since they were born. Others do not have that family background, but it's important to convey to them that there are important options to consider for their futures and help them see how they can go about planning in those directions. Now, how can we differentiate other aspects? So I mentioned that at the heart of classroom practice, we have the modification of 3 curriculum-related elements: content, process, and product. But these are by no means the only elements that we can differentiate. These are 3 basic ones, but they can and frequently are used in combination with other aspects. Oops, sorry. I wanted to put the clicker here. We can group by pace, grouping, questioning. Now, I'm going to focus on content, product, process and product, and grouping, because otherwise we can spend the whole day here. So, how can we differentiate content? Now, there are 2 ways in which we can think about differentiating content. One is as adapting what we teach or want the students to learn, and the other one is adapting how we give access to what we teach or what we want them to learn. So, first of all, we must identify what content is to be taught. So you can use a form that helps you unpack a unit. And this happens at the planning stage because we are planning our lesson, yes? So if you unpack a unit in this way, it makes you see the unit in 6 different ways. And don't just rely on what the book or the teacher's book, and here's a teacher's book writer speaking, what the teacher's book tells you your learning intentions and your objectives are. You can have your own agenda. You take on the goals. Think in terms of can-do statements. So You can decide on what other learning intentions or objectives are the ones that you want for your specific students in this specific class, right? So with content and topic in mind, you can differentiate the content. So you can use assessment tools. I love this table, this strategy, the KWL chart. I simply love it. I use it also in teacher training. It's fabulous. You can, with assessment tools like this, you can identify the specific skills and concepts that students must achieve. And you can use this to know what the students know already about the topic. And you can also use it to assess what the children have learned at the end of the lesson. So, for example, at the beginning of the lesson, you draw this table. You draw it on the board if you like. I prefer doing it on a large sheet of paper and make a poster, because I can then put it on one side of the room and then bring it back at the end of the lesson, or at the end of the unit, or at the end of a series of lessons. You decide. So you have this table, yes, and you ask the students to write what they know or what they think they know about the topic in the first column, in the what I know. So for example, you are going to start a unit about dinosaurs. So students write the things they know or think they know in the first column. In the second column, they will write in the form of questions what they would like to know about the subject. Here, dinosaurs. Yes? Now, at the end of the lesson, or at the end of the unit, as I said, you can bring the chart back to the center of attention and review the questions in the want to know column. And so you will ask the learners to add statements here in the L, what I learned column, what I have learned. They put there the answers to the questions and any other information that they have learned and they find interesting, useful, exciting, etc. Then you can ask them, are there any questions that remain unanswered? So thinking back on the information they have learned, can they predict what the answers might be? And this can lead to further work, because they can start doing a small project, researching those questions that have remained unanswered. They can prepare a project, etc. Also, another thing that you need to bear in mind is give choice. Give choice in the type of instruction. You can use direct instruction, examples, worksheets, graphic organizers. So differentiating in this way requires pre-assessment, of course, to identify the students who don't need, for example, direct instructions. So students who don't need direct instructions can go directly to the application part of the unit. Also, use multiple text and resource materials. You can combine them with a variety of supplementary materials. So in this way, you have more opportunities to reach more students. You can give different students different resources at different levels of complexity towards the same, and this is very important, towards the same learning outcome. Because the aim of differentiated instruction is that all students achieve the learning outcomes. You can build a class library from discarded texts. Look for print material. I don't know, well, maybe, is there any print material left in the world? But you can use DVDs, CDs, well, use note-taking organizers, wikis, blogs, social media also. Present the content in different modes and support systems. For example, with apps, with websites, with reading partners, with audio and video recordings. If some of the content that we are offering is too large, it may be chunked into smaller units or shared through graphic organizers. For example, if they are reading a story, if they are doing a reading comprehension, that will help them follow the line. Yes. You can use stepped activities, worksheets, and scaffolding cards. For example, you can design worksheets that include open questions or tasks that will give students options on how to go about doing the work. You can code the worksheets with colors so that you can then assign them, assign learners to different pathways. Yes. Also, you can provide scaffolding cards. For example, if students are going to do a speaking activity, you can first brainstorm with them. Suppose that they have to give opinions. You can brainstorm with the class different phrases that they can use for giving opinions. They can create their own scaffolding card and have it with them while they are doing the activity. Or you can give the already prepared scaffolding cards to certain students or groups. Also, you can change the exercises, as I said before. For example, in reading and listening tasks, you usually have something like answer the question, read and answer the question, or listen and answer the question. Instead of that, change the exercise into a true, false, a multiple choice, a complete the sentences, and categorize the worksheets according to difficulty. But remember, there is something that is very important here when you are talking about worksheets. It's not creating a different worksheet for different groups. No, it's having the same worksheet with different levels of scaffolding. So you don't need a lot of levels, you only need 3. So for example, you can have worksheet A, which is the less challenging because it has the most support. Then you have C, it's the most challenging because it is the same exercise, but with less support. And B is something in the middle. Yes, so remember, it's not about giving the less confident students simpler or easier work. It's about making the content and the work more accessible to those who need support. Also, sometimes we find that grade level texts are too simple for some students, but too difficult for others. So change the vocabulary, edit the texts. You can help them in that way. Simplify the text, make it more challenging. There are, for example, lots of vocabulary tools, readability tools online that you can use. And there is something that is very useful. I'm sure that you have seen this. It's ChatGPT. Here you have 2 texts, short texts. One is aimed at A1 8-year-olds and the other at A2 8-year-olds. So you can use ChatGPT. I have only recently discovered this and I think it's fabulous. It's great help because it will adapt the text to the level that you need. So adapting the text, yes, no matter what tools you use, yes? Okay, now let's have a look at differentiating the process. When students encounter new ideas, new information, new skills, they need time to make sense of all these materials before they make it theirs. So this making sense of the materials is processing. It's how students come to understand the content, and this is an essential component of learning. So here we have some activities that we can use. Oops, here I have, sorry, there's a glitch here. Well, so you can use learning logs, journals, blogs, wikis, graphic organizers, learning stations, role plays. These are things that we do in class. So what we need to think in terms of the activities is that an effective activity is essentially a sense-making process designed to help the learners progress from their current point of understanding to a more complex level. So good differentiated activities are essentially good activities that are interesting, that require students to use knowledge, skills, and understandings. So what makes them differentiated is that they offer more than one way for the children to make sense of what is important. For example, here we have vocabulary man. I love this activity. Children choose a certain number of activities to do, and they add up points of, in this case, vocabulary practice each week. You may choose any combination of practice, and you can give them points. Yes, here is it. It's of course it's just a sample, right? So suppose that you tell them, okay, you can choose any number of activities, but you have to add up 100 points. And this can serve as homework for each week. It can be done in addition to another assignment. You can change the activities and tier them to 3 different levels and ages. For example, here, you can have these different types of activities. These would be lower level, mid-level, or high level. And you can combine the activities in the vocabulary man or in inquiry boards. And you can use, for example, Bloom's taxonomy to help you differentiate the activities using the different categories of the taxonomy. You can also use inquiry boards or learning menus. I found this one, it's beautiful. I found this one on the internet. It's for a lesson on bees. And I chose it because it shows how you can not just create the inquiry board or the learning menu, but also have a themed inquiry board, which is obviously more attractive. Yes, these are simply graphic organizers made up of different numbers of squares. Each square is an activity, and the activities help the students learn or practice a concept, but they have a choice. So they can be instructed to choose one or more of these activities to complete, and they can progress from one activity to the other in an organized way or in random order. That will be up to you. These have been around for a long time, but basically in static and paper format. Now with digital tools, you can turn them into interactive creative activities because all these can have hyperlinks. Suppose that you have the resources, the technical resources and availability and platforms to use technology in the classroom. Make it interactive. If your school doesn't have these resources, if your students cannot use technology in the classroom, if the students do not have access to technologies such as tablets, internet, stable internet connections, etc., okay, you work in a traditional way with books and with classroom notes and classroom resources, but it's an option. You can give them options to work, and especially with children, make them attractive. Now, this assignment, these assignment sheets, let's say, what they need to have is well-defined descriptions of how to complete the chosen activities. Mhm. You can also give these activities points if you wish. Yes, they can earn points for these activities and make it a kind of competition. They can refer back to units in the book and tell them, for example, to complete an X number of activities. Mhm. And in this way, you can differentiate because you are offering choice, and also you're offering them the possibility of completing different numbers of activities. Yes. Now, another thing that I mentioned was differentiation by grouping. Now, when learners do group work, you have to think about grouping in the context of the activity and how grouping will best support all the pupils to achieve the learning goals. Many people think that I remember once someone said, oh yes, teachers give students group work because in that way they can sit down and relax for a few minutes. That person was clearly never in a classroom where students are doing group work and we are dashing from one group to the other. Anyway, another thing that happens sometimes is that people say, okay, let's work in groups. And there is no rationale to grouping the students. So in order to have group work best, we need to bear in mind what the purpose of the grouping is, what the aim of the activity is, and how the grouping will impact learning. Sometimes it's appropriate to group pupils of similar ability. Some other times it's better to have mixed ability groups. You will decide. We can differentiate also by roles according to the ability. Some learners may be good at doing research, others at drawing or using technology, others at speaking in public. You can allocate the roles if you think that a learner needs to develop a particular ability, or you can allow them to choose the roles or allocate the roles randomly. But these are decisions that you need to plan before doing the group work in the classroom, whatever you choose to do. It's also important that learners know and understand what is expected of them and what they should expect from the group. When the group is the basis for cooperative learning, it's important that students, that each learner understands that their contribution to the group is essential and they are accountable. Now, what factors can you consider, should you consider when forming groups? As I said, the use or the purpose of the group. What learning experience has prompted the decision to group students? Also, how long will the group last? Is it for this particular activity? Is it a short activity? Is it a long-term project? Is it a project at the end of the lesson? Decisions about how long the group will last. What characteristics matter for this task? You need to analyze the students' characteristics in order to make the most of group work. Should the group be similar or mixed by students' characteristics? What size is appropriate given the goals that we have? And who will determine the group formation? Is it you or is it the students? These are important factors that we need to consider before we decide to do a group activity in the classroom. Now, differentiation by product. A product is very simply something that students generate at the end of a significant span of learning. And this product requires students to apply and extend what they have learned over a period of time. Products may range in complexity, but they should all have clear academic criteria. And they have also to be clearly aligned to the learning targets, to the learning intentions. And they are very important because they represent the students' knowledge, skills, understanding, and application of the content of the learning intentions. And they provide also an excellent way to assess students. And of course, they are very motivating for the students. There are lots of product types, and I bet that you have all done all or some of these in your classes, because these are things that we always do. So these are products, and they are wonderful for differentiation. Now, for example, suppose that students have been doing a unit on sports, and they can be given a choice of products. So here I have an example of differentiation by product. We have 3 groups of activities. So group A, they have a choice of 3. Group B, they have a choice of two, and group C, it's just one activity, but if you have a look, that activity involves doing all the others. They involve something more sophisticated. But here, students are expected to all work with the content of sports, with vocabulary of sports, with the grammar that you may have introduced in the unit on sports. It's not giving something easier. No, it's giving the students the option to do something at their level of competence, at their level of confidence, but with the same objective for all of them. Yes? Now, how can we develop high quality product assignments? First of all, decide on the format the product will take. Sometimes the requirements of the curriculum shape the product, but even if this is so, you can decide on 2 or 3 options and differentiate further by inviting the learners to suggest alternative options that are of personal interest. There's always a way around the curriculum. Also, as I mentioned at the beginning, determine baseline expectations for quality. Clarify what students should pursue in regard to the content, how they should work, and what indicators of quality they should work toward. I have found that it's a very good idea to build checklists of what good product looks like. For example, suppose that students are going to write a narrative. So discuss with them first what a good narrative looks like and elaborate a checklist of things they can go back to when they finish their narrative, and they can tick off the items that they feel they have achieved, they have included. For example, if you have a debate, discuss with the class first what elements should a debate have and what aspects of a debate should be present in their own class debates, the roles, etc. Prepare a checklist, and then as they are working, as they are conducting the debate, they can self-assess and assess their group's performance, and then they can give each other feedback. So telling them, showing them what a good product is like, so that they have some sort of reference. Also, determine how you will support your students. For example, brainstorm ideas to present the product, arrange peer consultation and editing, provide samples, so that they have references. Help them relate the product to the real world. Help them see how the ideas and the skills that they study at school are used in the real world to assess real issues. Because many a times students think that what they do in class is just for the English class, and it has no relationship at all with the rest of the world. Also, encourage them to use and synthesize multiple sources of information. This is something that has always puzzled me with students of different ages. They can do it in their own language. But then when it comes to English, it's like they have an airtight box here that reads English and nothing comes in. All the skills that they use in the real world, in their subjects at school. For example, combining knowledge that they have between history and geography, combining that to do something. It seems that they forget it when they are coming to the English class. So show them how those skills that they use or they are learning to use in their own language or with the curriculum subjects can be used in the same way in English. Provide templates or organizers to support struggling learners so that they can organize ideas, they can see the ideas in an organized way. Also, establish mini milestones for sections of the product. Sometimes a project can be quite ambitious, but if you put milestones, there are more opportunities for assessment, for change, editing, and for success. There are more little successes. And also analyze models of effective products from previous years or from other classes. Of course, they will be anonymous, but you can show them what other students have done so that they know, oh, okay, this is what the teacher wants us to do. All right, now it's your inspiration, kids. Now, as Piaget reflected, the heartbreaking difficulty in pedagogy is that the best methods are also the most difficult ones, or at least they are not that easy. Now, although managing a differentiated classroom isn't always easy, I think that the benefits are worth the challenge. And if you will allow me, I will give a few tips that you can use to meet the challenge of designing and managing differentiated instruction for your learners. First of all, have a strong rationale for creating a differentiated classroom and share it with students and parents, particularly with the parents. If you help them understand and contribute to your view of the classroom, they are likely to support you. Very important, begin at a pace that is comfortable for you. Baby steps. I'm sure that many of you are already making frequent adjustments in curriculum and in instruction to allow for learner differences in the classroom. Maybe with just a few additional touches, you will be ready to gradually move ahead to full differentiation. If you feel not very confident yet, take baby steps, one step at a time, one thing at a time. Select a few low preparation strategies and use them consistently throughout the year. And then choose one or two high preparation approaches per unit or per quarter and add them to your repertoire. But please don't try to do everything at the same time. First of all, you don't need to differentiate everything. This doesn't mean that you need to differentiate every aspect of your unit. No. Take it easy. Yes. Decide what you need to differentiate. Decide what aspects of a unit you will differentiate. And don't try to do everything at the same time. Then Time the activities, time differentiated activities to support student success. Remember that the time allotted for a task should be a bit less than the attention span of the student who works on the task. Deliver and create and deliver instructions carefully. That is, instead of giving multiple sets of instructions to the whole class, give task cards to individuals or groups. You can designate an instructions reader in each group whose job will be to read and answer questions about the directions. Also, use simple language and bullet points. Create a system to assign students to groups that is efficient and fast. Make a wall chart for groups with extended duration. Give them colors, labels, whatever. Get help from the students when you are busy with another students. Make sure they understand when it's okay to come to you for help and when it's not okay, and that it's not okay to interrupt another student's work. Agree on class rules. Have a plan for fast finishers. If there are students who consistently finish early and they do so at the expected level of competence, it means that the task wasn't challenging enough for them. So, or that they rushed to be the first ones to finish. So, convey the message that you understand that they are competent, but you want to see work that reflects their aspiration to quality, and you want them to take pride in what they do. Also, promote on-task behavior. Convey to students that this will help them do better quality work. Give them responsibility for their learning, and engage them in talking about classroom procedures and expectations. Have conversations about what you are all experiencing individually and as a group. And last but not least, plan, and share work with colleagues. Okay, so this is it. Here you have some references that I hope you find useful. I'm going to share these slides. I'm going to send them to Laura and the SIG so that they are available. And well, if you need to contact me, here is my email address. You can find me on LinkedIn, and also you can have a look at my YouTube channel. So thank you very, very much, all of you, for attending this talk. And thank you, SIG people, the YLT SIG, for inviting me today to give this plenary session.
Annie, it has been our absolute pleasure to have you talking. I have tried to capture some of the comments that have come up in the chat for you, but if you have time now to scroll back and read them all, I think you'll get very emotional, because it's clear that people have really, really, really enjoyed this session.
Do you think I could have is it possible to have a copy?
I will do my best. I'm not quite sure but I've tried to capture the ones that I could for you.
Okay, okay, thank you so much.
No, and thank you for sharing your contact details, and thank you for saying you'll share the slides, because a lot of people have been asking for that. So yes, if you share them with me, I'll make sure they're available via our social media. There were a couple of questions that came in the Q&A. I don't know if you would like to have a look at some of them. So one question was about reducing planning time. Kirsten said she thinks, teachers are scared that this could create extra planning time. I think you gave some great practical tips, but would you like to comment on that further for a moment?
I think that yes, we already have a lot of things to do, so anything extra is scary. But while you are planning, that is, this also comes with practice. Yes. Remember what I said. Don't try to differentiate everything. Don't. it's impossible. Even if you only have 3 classes, it would be impossible to differentiate and not necessary. So, sorry, choose the things that you want to differentiate. Look at the whole unit first and decide on what really needs to be differentiated. Usually, the first thing you will aim at is listening and reading. Oh, sorry.
Yes, you have been talking for a long time. I don't blame you for needing a drink.
Yeah, cold tea, this is wonderful. So decide in the unit that remember the table that I showed at the beginning? That's very useful because you can have a look and decide, okay, I'm going for this week, I'm going to differentiate this, and this, or this and this. And that will depend on the needs of your student. Maybe you only need to differentiate one exercise, one activity, yes? So start small. And as you are planning, I find sticky notes very useful. As you start planning your lesson, as you usually do, maybe you can put sticky notes with ideas. Or if you have a template, some schools, some language schools give teachers templates to prepare their planning, to plan their classes. So maybe you can add a little extra column somewhere or pencil in the few ideas that you can use for differentiation. I know that it can be overwhelming, but I think that the key is start small, baby steps, and decide what really requires differentiation.
Annie, I think that's the perfect message. Thank you again on behalf of the Young Learner and Teenagers SIG for getting this conference off to the most fantastic possible start.
Thank you.
I think you'll find you have a few more subscribers on YouTube because we've been sharing your channel link in the chat and people are telling us already that they've signed up. Everyone, we're going to take a short break now and the next talk will start at 13:30 UK time, and that's a talk on real world issues through stories from the fabulous Bhavna Gupta. So there's time to go and grab a drink, take a small comfort break, and we hope to see you back for the next session. Thank you, Annie.
Bye.